Hey everyone, welcome again to another 360 Timmy minisode. This week we're talking about the bonkers things that people do in their gardens, like having a police box or a Tardis. Let's step inside. Well, welcome inside the Tardis, and isn't it bigger on the inside? So lots of us have gardens and maybe a little potting shed where you keep your lawnmower and your tools. There is a bit more of a drive these days with working from home, not so much room inside. People have been putting their offices in their gardens and maybe making it into a she shed or a man cave. And of course, then it goes to the next level. You saw a couple of episodes ago the guy that built a cinema in his garden. That's quite extreme. But later in the show, we're going to cover a guy who built a whole bunker in the bottom of his garden and buried it over. And then he started connecting tunnels up to it. And now he's building a garage at the front of his house with a car lift to take his DeLorean to street level. He's utterly bonkers, but a great engineer, and it's a great watch. So we'll cover that slightly later in the show.
This is my drive. This is my secret underground tunnel system, which I've been digging by hand over the past 3 years. And this is my DeLorean. Now, wouldn't it be the most rock and roll thing ever if I could get out of bed, go downstairs, go into the underground tunnel system, along the tunnel, and then into a garage to find the DeLorean, and at the push of a button, ooh, the DeLorean comes up out the drive. Oh yes, that is the thing of dreams. We are gonna do that.
So I guess some of the imagination for people's gardens now stems from childhood. I certainly loved Doctor Who as a child, and I loved it so much. I kept saying to my dad, I want to have a police box, I want to have a police box. And he used to bring home these fairly tall cardboard boxes from work, and I used to cut holes in it, make a little door, paint it blue, and I had my own little TARDIS, and I was happy as Larry for a while. But obviously I wanted a real police box, and I remember even being at secondary school during woodwork, I tried to make a kind of scale model of a TARDIS. I was dreadful at woodwork, so it never worked out. But I am absolutely fascinated by the actual thing itself, the 1950s police box. And it did have a purpose on the streets of the UK. Here's a bit of a history of it right here.
The police signal post, as it was called, appeared on the streets of London in the 1880s and made use of the newly invented telephone. For the first time, the policeman on the beat could keep in touch with his local station. But it wasn't long before the posts became fully fledged boxes and objects of great civic pride. Inside, there was a first aid kit, a desk, and a logbook. The police box was also a place for the weary copper to have a rest and a cup of tea. Regional variations abounded. In Glasgow, the early boxes even had a remote-controlled gas lamp to summon the policeman on the beat. The ultimate design was at Trafalgar Square, where the box was put inside a stone pillar topped by a lamp from Nelson's ship. Some boxes had a telephone for public use. With a direct line to the police, it was claimed the boxes deterred the rougher and more violent class of prisoner, as police officers could quickly obtain assistance. The classic Doctor Who police box was the new improved concrete model launched in 1929. These boxes materialized all over the country, and to educate the public, demonstrations were given at the 1936 radio show.
Perhaps you've noticed those blue telephone boxes labeled police box, but some of you still think that they are only for us to use. They are not. They are for you to use, and we want you to use them. There is a little window through which you can get at the telephone, which is in direct communication with the nearest police station.
During the war, the police box saw heroic service. With sirens replacing flashing lamps, they doubled up as air raid warning posts. The heyday for the police box came in the 1950s. London alone had almost 700. And by the early 60s, they were one of the most common sights on the streets of Britain. So it wasn't surprising that a certain Time Lord chose it as the disguise for his stolen time machine.
Coming back to the 20th century, my dear, the TARDIS, I'm afraid, is often mistaken for the real police box.
See what you mean.
But for the police, times were changing fast. With two-way radios and quick response patrol cars, the old-style box was on the way out. The final blow came in 1969, when the Home Secretary ordered the removal of London's boxes. Vandalism. Today, the police box is the Tardis, stranded in time and space and modelled on something which in the real world has dematerialised forever.
The story of the police box and Doctor Who is quite fascinating as well, of course. The BBC, back in 1963, when they were devising the show, when it came to what was going to be the spaceship, the time travel machine, they were rather vexed about how to do it without it costing a lot of money. At the same time, there was a show in production called Dixon of Dock Green, and one of the props they had was a police box. And hence, they devised this thing where the time travel machine could blend in wherever it landed, and it landed in 1963 as a 1950s phone box, which would be correct, a police box. And as you can see, they were used greatly before police radios were invented. And then the idea was it would take off, and then the next place it would go, it would change shape. Only they kept it as a police box, and arguably it is one of the most famous sci-fi elements there is in terms of Doctor Who. You've had all the faces of Doctor Who change over the years, but the TARDIS never has changed. Although that's not strictly true. Obviously in the original 1960s up until 1980s show, it was a similar prop used in Dixon of Dock Green. When the show was brought back in 2005, the police box design was changed to reflect Ultra HD, a fuller frame, and with every Doctor, there's been a slight change. You'll see the windows have got different colours. The St John's ambulance badge moves around. They changed the interior. So they're changing it up all the time. So when it came to me picking a police box for my garden, I contacted a company called The Customizer. I talked to Ian up there, who's absolutely fantastic. And he was building every example of the police box you could imagine from the show. So he had a Tom Baker version, which was slightly smaller and old-fashioned design. And then he had the realistic ones from David Tennant onwards, pretty much. Christopher Eccleston onwards, I think. So when it came to me picking what police box I wanted, I had to pick on the design. I think I've got the Matt Smith design, I think it is, or is it the David Tennant one? Maybe it's the David Tennant one, actually. So it's got the whole white windows. I like that kind of look. The Customizer's based up in Liverpool. Have a look at some of their work.
Okay, so this is our mini desk for the front end to the mini. It's all metal. I'm going to show you around it now. Real wheels, working lights, looks fantastic. Any colour you want, check on the website. If you go through, you can select what you would like, what colour. We can do decals on the front, anything that you need, we can do right here at the Customizer.
So I had a great experience. I went up to see police box being made, so I was happy with how it was going to look, and the Customizer team came down to Kent, all the way from Liverpool, and put the police box up in my garden. And it's kind of bonkers, really, but it just appeared overnight. And I remember Ian saying to me when it arrived, he said, your neighbours are just going to wake up tomorrow, and there it is in the corner. And, you know, very, very rarely do people ever comment on it. I actually did have someone that came around here once for first aid, an ambulance worker, late at night, and we sorted out the person that was affected. But then later on he went, can I have a picture with your TARDIS in the garden? And that's the first time that's actually happened to me. It's not visible particularly from the street, but if you live around where I am, you can certainly see it, and I just love it. It's been great for me because I use this office for work, and I started working in here during the lockdown, and of course it's there in the background, and it was just really a happy accident that happened. But it's great. It's such a diffuser. You go on calls that are quite controversial sometimes, or from around the world, and you get, what is that, a TARDIS in the background? And obviously a lot of people think it's a fake background, but it is actually real. So you know, a great story there. What do we put in it? Not a lot. We put deck chairs in there in the summer. I guess we could put our beer machines in there, or make it into a little bar. Maybe that's a project for the future. Obviously, police boxes have now left the streets of the UK, except in some places across the UK. Now, there is one outside a police station in Wetherby, I think it is, and there is also a load of police boxes still on the streets of Glasgow. This particular clip shows how some of those have been used. Now, remember, the police boxes that were originally in place were typically made of concrete. And there's also, if you're in London, if you're near Earl's Court, there's still a police box there. In fact, it's a modern one that the Metropolitan Police put up a few years ago. And I think if you go on Google Earth, you can actually go up to it and walk inside. And it used to do this anyway. And there's a TARDIS inside. But anyway, let's look at this clip about the police boxes of Glasgow. So, having a police box in your garden is one thing, having an office or a bar is another. A cinema, that was quite extreme, but not until you come across Colin Furze. Now, he is incredible. He's an absolutely fantastic YouTuber. He makes great videos, all kinds of bonkers things he does. He's an engineer as well, and he built a bunker in his garden a few years ago, and that was kind of the start of a crazy set of videos. Let's have a look at that first bunker that he built.
2015, I quarried up the whole garden, and right underneath my feet, I made an underground bunker.
I've got to get it cut sooner or later. My style's stuck in a rut like an 80s waiter. Deadly won't rip you off, he's not that kind of guy. Just keep it long on top and short on the side. It seems that street talk is being put on the shelf. I wouldn't want my income by anybody else. It's gonna take an inch like a personal trainer. Just you don't ever flinch, or you be no brainer. You know that feeling, Dave, man, they're always fine. Street talk is going nowhere, stuck on the borderline. It seems that street talk is being put on the shelf. I wouldn't want my income by anybody else. We all make mistakes, especially each other. The left on my is gonna hold
Good
me
lad.
down. You know that feeling, Dave, they're not two brothers. The sound of my head's gonna stand me out from the crowd.
Now, it's nearly 5 years old now, so how is it keeping up? As you never know when you might need it. As you can see, it completely blends in. If you didn't know it was here, you wouldn't know it was here. The grass is all the same now. It's pretty flat. I've got houses behind me, which I didn't have before. The solid shed is still a really solid shed. If you want to see how to make that shed, there is a video showing you how to make that shed. And that shed actually won Shed of the Year in 2017 for the bunker bit as well. All looks pretty normal up here. Let's have a look. just as amazing as the day I built it.
Is this the real thing? Or is
This place has stood still in time. Even the tape is still stuck to the walls. The ladder, of course, of it being stainless steel, they've got no corrosion, it's got no damage on it or anything. The only thing I have changed in the tunnel, as I've got to call it, is I have lacquered the walls and I've added 4 vents into the floor, and I'll get onto why I did that shortly when I'm in the main room. The only other thing which has happened in here, which hasn't happened anywhere else in the whole bunker, is there's a bit on the wall here that sounds hollow. I'm guessing the cement has contracted slightly. No other place in the whole bunker does it sound like that. Right then, on to the main bit. This is still one of the best things I have ever made.
through your bones? Is it racing through your soul? Does it reassure your mind when I say don't let me go? 'Cause every time you speak, I don't know what it does to me, but it makes me feel so weak.
So please do follow Colin. It is an absolutely fantastic collection of videos that he's got. And it's not just about building the bunker and the tunnels. I saw a video at the weekend where somebody came out from Glencoe Radback, which is a company that specialises in radon gas detection. That's a very real thing, especially when you're digging in to the ground underneath your house. There is a very real risk in some parts of the UK, which I didn't know, of radon gas. And obviously, when you're closer to that ground, that risk is greater.
Radon's a naturally occurring radioactive gas. It comes from the decay of uranium up to 5 miles in the Earth's crust. It's in all rocks and soils.
Yeah.
So it's coming out of the rocks you're digging out.
Okay. Now you've done a test, didn't you? We are in, I'm in, not we, not you guys. I am in a high radon area.
So yeah, there's a government website, ukradon.org. You can type your postcode in and see if you're in a high risk area.
Yeah.
And where you are, you are.
So I think he's waiting to hear on the comeback for that. So I recommend another video. Colin Furze has radon gas, which I'll put a link to at the end, because that's again another fascinating thing I didn't know about. And you always learn stuff on YouTube. So please do subscribe to Colin. And if you've got some crazy stuff that you know your neighbour's doing in the garden, buildings or structures, let's have a look. I mean, there's lots of shows on now, isn't there? There's a competition for the best shed in the UK, the most bizarre use of a shed, all that kind of stuff. So it's a great hobby, again, to keep you active and give you a bit of an interest. If you like this video, please do like and subscribe. If you want to reach out to me, please do contact me at 360timmy.com. But apart from that, you have a super day.